The forest was alive with the fury of the storm. Rain fell in silver sheets, turning the earth to slick black mud beneath Jake Carter's boots. Thunder rolled like a distant beast, shaking the pines as wind tore through their branches, sending needles spiraling into the dark. He shouldn't have been out here. Not now. Not like this. But something had pulled him deeper into the woods, a whisper in his gut he couldn't ignore. Then, cutting through the storm's roar, a whimper. Not the wind, not his imagination. Real. Jake's breath hitched. The sound was small, broken, the kind of cry that spoke of pain, of exhaustion, of a creature that had given up hope of being heard. His pulse hammered in his throat as he turned, scanning the gloom. There, again, a shuddering gasp, half drowned by the rain. He pushed forward, boots sinking into the muck, his hood plastered to his face. The underbrush clawed at his jeans, thorns snagging skin, but he barely felt it. The whine came once more, closer now, raw and desperate. Then he saw her. A German shepherd, her once proud frame crumpled beneath the weight of a fallen oak branch. Mud streaked her golden-brown fur like war paint, her sides heaving with panicked breaths. One of her hind legs was pinned, the fur around it matted with something darker than dirt. Blood. Their eyes met. Hers were wide, liquid amber, pupils blown with pain. But beneath the fear, something flickered. A spark. Hope. Jake dropped to his knees beside her, the cold earth biting through his jeans. Hey, it's okay, he murmured, voice low and steady, the way you'd speak to a spooked child. She flinched as he reached out, but didn't snap. Just watched him, trembling. Up close, the damage was worse. The branch hadn't just trapped her, it had crushed. Splinters dug into her leg, the flesh beneath swollen and purpling. Every ragged breath she took made her whine, her claws scraping helplessly at the mud. Jake's stomach twisted. He couldn't leave her. Gritting his teeth, he wedged his hands under the branch. The wood was waterlogged, heavier than he expected, and for one heart-stopping second, it didn't budge. The shepherd whimpered, her tail tucking tighter. No, I've got you, he growled, muscles burning as he shoved upward with everything he had. The branch groaned, lifting, just enough. With a sharp yelp, she scrambled free, collapsing onto her side. Her injured leg curled tight against her belly. She was shaking. Not just from cold, from shock. Jake didn't think. He stripped off his soaked jacket, wrapping it around her like a makeshift sling before gathering her into his arms. She was lighter than she looked, all sinew and survival, her body radiating feverish heat against his chest. Her breath came in shallow pants against his neck, her heartbeat a frantic drum against his ribs. "You're safe now," he whispered, more to himself than her. That's when he heard it. A growl, not from the dog in his arms, from the shadows behind him. Jake went stone still. The rain seemed to hush, the forest holding its breath. Slowly he turned. Eyes, 5 pairs of them, gleaming in the storm's gloom like polished coins. German shepherds, larger, broader than the one he held, emerged from the trees, their muzzles low, their bodies coiled tight. The one in front, a massive male with a scar splitting his lip, took a single step forward. His teeth glinted as another growl rumbled deep in his chest. Jake's arms tightened instinctively around the injured shepherd. They weren't just watching, they were hunting, and he was standing between them and their own. The world narrowed to the space between heartbeats. Rainwater dripped from Jake's lashes as he stared into the alpha's unblinking eyes, black as gunmetal, burning with primal calculation. The scarred male's muzzle wrinkled, revealing teeth meant for tearing. A warning, a promise. Behind him the pack fanned out in perfect formation, their muscles coiled like springs, rain-slicked fur bristling. The injured shepherd in Jake's arms let out a soft whimper, her body tensing. He could feel her racing pulse against his forearm, the way her claws pricked through his soaked shirt. Were they her family? Her soldiers? Every survival instinct screamed at Jake to move, to run, to fight, to do something, but his muscles locked. One wrong twitch, and those powerful jaws would be on him. The alpha's nostrils flared, testing the air. Jake smelled it too. The iron tang of the injured dog's blood, the wet earth musk of the pack, his own adrenaline souring the storm-chilled wind. "Easy," Jake murmured, barely louder than the rain pattering on the leaves. His throat had gone sandpaper dry. "I'm not your enemy." The alpha took another step. Close enough now that Jake could see the individual hairs standing erect along his spine, the way his claws dug into the mud with each deliberate movement. The other dogs mirrored him, their circle tightening like a noose. A low, rolling growl passed through them like an electric current. Jake's arms ached from holding the trembling shepherd, but he adjusted his grip, careful not to jostle her injured leg. His mind raced. If he set her down, would they turn on her? If he held on, would they see it as theft? The alpha's ears flicked forward at the movement, another growl vibrating deep in his barrel chest. Then, warmth. A rough tongue dragged up Jake's cheek. The injured shepherd licked him again, her breath huffing against his skin in a weak but unmistakable gesture. Trust. Time suspended. The alpha froze. His dark eyes darted between Jake and the dog, his scarred muzzle twitching as he sniffed the air anew. The growling ceased. For 3 endless seconds, the only sounds were the patter of rain and the injured shepherd's labored breathing. Then, impossibly, the alpha's head lowered. His tail gave a single, stiff wag. Like dominoes falling, the pack's posture shifted. Shoulders relaxed, jaws loosened. One by one, their tails began to sway, their intense stares softening into something almost like curiosity. Jake didn't dare breathe. The injured shepherd nuzzled deeper into his embrace, her body going limp with exhaustion. When he finally exhaled, his breath came out in a shuddering cloud. They'd judged him, and somehow, against all odds, he'd passed. The storm still raged, but the forest had gone eerily quiet around them, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Jake adjusted his grip on the injured shepherd, her weight growing heavier with each step as exhaustion claimed her. Her breath came in shallow puffs against his neck, warm and damp. Behind him, the pack moved like shadows given form. He could feel their presence without looking. The rhythmic squelch of paws in mud, the occasional shake of wet fur, the weight of their stares boring into his back. Every few steps, he risked a glance over his shoulder. They kept perfect formation. The alpha led, his massive shoulders rolling with each deliberate stride, head slightly lowered but eyes sharp, always watching. The others fanned out behind him, their movements synchronized, disciplined. No stray barks, no wandering sniffs, just silent, purposeful tracking. This wasn't normal dog behavior. Rain dripped from Jake's brow as he squinted through the downpour. That's when he saw it, a flash of worn leather against the alpha's thick neck. A collar, faded but unmistakably official. K9 unit. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. His steps faltered. These weren't strays. They were soldiers, trained, loyal, meant to serve. The alpha's ears twitched at Jake's hesitation, his dark eyes locking onto him with unnerving intelligence. For a heartbeat, Jake wondered if the dog could see the realization dawning on him, if he understood the pieces clicking together in Jake's mind. Abandoned? Lost? Left behind? The shepherd in his arms whimpered softly, her body tensing as a fresh wave of pain shuddered through her. Jake instinctively pulled her closer, his thumb brushing over the curve of her skull in silent reassurance. The alpha's gaze flicked to her, then back to Jake. Something unreadable passed between them. An understanding. A truce. The pack closed ranks slightly, their pace adjusting to match Jake's. Not hurting him, not threatening him, guarding him. Jake's throat tightened. These dogs had once risked their lives for humans, had trusted them. And now here they were, drenched and weary, placing fragile faith in a stranger simply because one of their own had. The wind howled through the pines, carrying with it the scent of wet fur and old leather, of loyalty that outlasted duty. Jake swallowed hard against the sudden ache in his chest. They had no one but each other. And now, inexplicably, him. The cabin's single bulb cast long shadows as Jake worked, his fingers moving with careful precision. The shepherd lay on a nest of old blankets, her flank rising and falling steadily as he cleaned the gash on her paw. Antiseptic stung the air, mixing with the scent of wet fur and wood smoke. Every few seconds her ears twitched toward the window. They were still there. Jake could feel their presence like a second heartbeat. 5 silent silhouettes pressed against the fogged glass, their breath leaving ghostly circles on the pane. The alpha stood sentinel at the front, his scarred muzzle leaving a smudge where he nudged the window. Watching. Waiting. "Almost done, girl," Jake murmured, securing the last strip of bandage. The shepherd lifted her head and licked his wrist once, a silent thank you that made his chest tighten. Dawn came softly, painting the cabin in pale gold. Jake opened the door, the hinges creaking into the crisp morning air, and froze. The alpha stood motionless on the porch, something metallic glinting between his teeth. Early light caught the edges of a battered canine badge, its surface scratched but the emblem still visible. A shield, a star, years of service worn into its grooves. Time suspended. With deliberate care, the alpha placed the badge at Jake's boots. It landed with a soft clink, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet. Then he sat back, ears pricked forward, dark eyes locked onto Jake's face. The message was clear. This was trust. This was everything. Jake's vision blurred. He knelt slowly, the wooden planks cold beneath his knees. His fingers trembled as he reached out, first brushing the badge's rough edges, then sinking into the thick fur of the alpha's neck. A shudder ran through the dog's body, but he didn't pull away. "You're welcome," Jake whispered, his voice cracking. "All of you." Behind the alpha, the pack emerged from the mist, 4 more shadows materializing into solid forms. The smallest, a female with 1 torn ear, took a tentative step forward, then another, until they stood together on the threshold, their coats steaming slightly in the morning chill. No one moved to leave. The shepherd inside whined, her tail thumping against the floor. Jake looked at the badge, then at the dogs, then at the wild expanse of trees beyond his cabin, the line between lost and found blurring in the golden light. The choice had already been made, for all of them. Golden afternoon light filtered through the pines as Jake's boot crunched on fallen needles. A blur of tan and black shot past him. Hope, her once injured paw now sure-footed as she darted between trees, her bark bright with joy. Thor kept pace at Jake's heel, his massive shoulder brushing Jake's thigh like a living shadow. The forest smelled of warm earth and sun-baked fur. Jake inhaled deeply, the scent filling him with something deeper than peace. Belonging. Behind him, the rest of the pack fanned out, their movements synchronized in an effortless dance. The female with the torn ear, Luna, paused to nose at a squirrel hole, while the youngest, Bear, playfully bowled over his brother. Then a distant engine growled. Thor's head snapped up, ears rigid. The pack stilled as one, muscles coiling beneath fur. A cloud of dust rose from the dirt road as a patrol car rolled into view, its emblem glinting, the same shield etched on Thor's battered badge. Jake's pulse jumped. The door opened. A man in a faded K9 unit jacket stepped out, his boots hitting gravel with military precision. His gaze locked onto Thor, and his tanned face went pale. "Rex?" The name tore from his throat like a prayer. Thor didn't move. The officer's hands trembled as he took a step forward. "We searched for months after the avalanche. We thought—" His voice broke. Jake watched Thor's tail twitch once. Slowly, the Alpha turned his head and pressed his wet nose into Jake's palm. Understanding flooded Jake like sunrise. He met the officer's watery gaze. They weren't lost. Hope leaned against his leg, warm and solid. They were waiting. The officer's breath hitched as he took in the pack. Their glossy coats, their bright eyes, the way their bodies angled toward Jake like compass needles finding north. A tear carved a path through the dust on his cheek. As the sun dipped below the tree line, painting everything in fire, the pack closed ranks around Jake. Thor sat at his right, Hope at his left, the others forming a living circle. Their breath fogged in the cooling air, their tails sweeping pine needles in unison. The officer wiped his face and nodded, the unspoken truth hanging between them. Some bonds outlast duty. Some rescues go both ways. Jake buried his fingers in Thor's thick ruff, the dog's heartbeat steady against his wrist. The forest hummed with crickets and the pack's soft panting, the sounds weaving together into something rare and perfect. Not a rescue, a homecoming.